Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Rohit and this is the day 3 of the Agile development sessions. In these sessions, we'll talk about that what is the Agile user and how they perform in our ServiceNow instance. So if I go back here in my documentation, we'll talk about that Agile user today. In our last sessions, we successfully installed this plugin and Agile plugin. And in these Agile plugins, there are various uh, modules are available called Epic, Story, Enhancement, Defect, Groups, Product, all those stuffs they have available. So our first point is that we'll talk about that Agile user. We'll not go as much, deep dive that today. But if you see here in the high level, we have high level 7 Agile user. One is the Scrum user. Who is the Scrum user? Scrum user, a user who doesn't have any um, role or anything. They have, they only have the read access. They cannot write access. So probably this Scrum user only provided certain user who like a customer, they can read that what is happening to the story. We have many other roles, but we mostly focus on the 7 user. One is the Scrum user, Scrum team member, Scrum release planner, Scrum sprint planner, Scrum master, product owner, and Scrum admin. So Scrum admin is the higher level of full admin privilege on the Agile 2.0. So we'll discuss that one by one. So basically we have high level 7 user, but I am not going to work with all those user. I am going to cut a couple of user and then I am going to show you that how it looks like that. So very first thing, I am the admin as a system administrator, and then that's the reason I have a full access to the left navigation. Now if I go back to the CC user table, under this CC user table, if I search with the Scrum, I have created 4 basically user. One is the Scrum user, another is the Scrum team member, Scrum master, and then Scrum product owner. These four part I am going to, or 4 user I am going to work with that. So let's see that, as I mentioned, that Scrum user, this is the Scrum user. The Scrum user has very less access, and then Scrum user have only read access. Probably this Scrum user is nothing but the customer of your company. They can only read the story. They can only read the enhancement or defect. They don't have access to write, or they don't have anything to create that. So this is the less privilege, that they can only see the record. So if I open this Scrum user here, at that moment, this Scrum user doesn't have any role. So this role is completely empty, and you can see this user is active and logged out. False. So let's say that first I'll impersonate that user and see that is there any module available for related to the Agile or not. So what I'll do, I'll click that impersonate another user and then select the Scrum user. So I have successfully impersonated that Scrum user, and once I impersonate that, this pop-up is came up because that user is the new. Now, you guys, somebody will be assumed that some of the user in your platform, they don't have any role. They will simply go to that portal. So that's the expected behavior. Now, what we'll do, the left navigation, if we search that Agile, here you can see the Scrum user or the less user, that the user that doesn't have any role, they cannot simply see the module. So if I search with the Agile, they can't see that. So they will have that self-service module and then couple of module access they have, but without any Scrum role, they can't see anything called Agile development. For that, first what I have to do, I have to give them the Scrum user role. But in the service now, we normally don't provide any role directly, right? So what we'll do, I'll end the impersonation. So first trigger point, or you can say the first Agile setup, what we have to do as I know that the Scrum user, so probably the they has to has the role called Scrum user role, right? So for the timing, what I'll do, I'll go to the CC user table, and then simply add them to a group, or I simply add them a role. So Scrum user, this Scrum user have that. This Scrum user doesn't have any role. What I'll do that, I'll go to the role sections, and then I will add them the Scrum underscore user role. So if I give them that Scrum underscore user role, so you can see related to the Scrum, there are many role we have. So we'll add them the Scrum user role and save that. Once we save that, it inherited certain role. What I'll do, I'll impersonate that user again. called Scrum user and see if they are able to see any agile module in the left navigation or not. So if I click here and then search with that agile, now you can see they are able to completely see all this module with that Scrum user role. And then if I click that agile board, what will be happen? Let's first see that. So first thing first, the error they are getting that you don't have any backlog. Ask your product owner to share the backlog to you. Sprint planning, if we go back here, you don't have access to sprint planning. You should belongs to agile group to access the sprint tracking. So there are a couple of restrictions that we are getting, but as we can see that we are not able to see the agile board. If we go to the personal backlog, there is an empty record, you can't edit that. If we go back to the product, you can see that as I mentioned that the Scrum user only have a read access only. So read access only, so they can see that this product details here. They can't create or they can't edit that, but everything is read only for them. Now next, if we go back to the groups, you can see a couple of groups are there, but if we open that, everything is read only for them. Now let's go back to this release. And you can see they are able to access each and every module except this agile board, and then they can't modify anything, so they have only read only access. So very first thing is that what we understand that the first thing, they have the Scrum user role, but they can't see the module or they can't see the agile board properly, right? So that's the very basic things that we have learned so far. Okay. Now what we'll do, I'll end the impersonation. So using that, we understand that a Scrum user can access the agile model, and then the Scrum user have read only access. But ServiceNow, what ServiceNow recommended that? ServiceNow recommended that we should not give the role directly to the user. So very first thing, what we'll do here, I have go back to the agile module first here, agile here. Under this agile, you can see a groups here. Okay, and these are the agile groups is available. How we identify that this is the group which are the part of agile? Because group have a field called type. So if you go back to the CC user group table, you have a one field called type. If you add this type field here, there will be a type called agile. Okay, so if you add this type equal to agile, these groups will be available under this module. Okay, so very first thing that we have to create a agile group first. So for that, what I'll do, I'll click in this module called create agile group. Once we click that, it will be open a catalog item name. Here we need to be create a we need to provide the name and description. So let's say that in this group I am going to put the name agile, this group name I am going to give that the agile read only access customer group. So this is the group where the customer will be added, and then they will be able to see that they will be able to only access this this agile module. They won't be able to modify anything. And then once we click submit that, the group will be created. Now question is, who can create the group? Product owner or the admin, or the through the automation the group can be created. Now if you see in the top, there is a one pop-up came up that the group created and then Scrum underscore user role added. So role Scrum underscore user from for these groups. So it means that whenever I create a agile type of group, if the group type is agile, automatically this Scrum underscore user role will be added to the group. So you can see the view is Scrum view. If I change this group Scrum view to the default view, the group that I have created have one role by default added, that is called Scrum user. Now my next step is that I'll add this group member equal to my Scrum user. So let's say that I'm going to add the user Scrum underscore user to this group. So what I'll do, I'll search that Scrum underscore user and I'll add this to user to this group. Now you can see this user is added to here. The Scrum user is added to a group that we call this agile read-only access customer. This group they have added. What I'll do, the role that I have assigned directly the Scrum user role, I'll remove that. Okay, I'll simply remove this Scrum underscore user role, and then let it be. So for the timing, let's recap that I have created a user, and the user basic need is the Scrum user to see this module, agile development, to see this application or the left application. They have to have Scrum user role. And how this Scrum user role will be get it? So there has to be, first you have to create a groups, or you have to add the user, you have to create a groups, agile groups, or the user has to be part of any agile group. Then they will inherited the Scrum user role, and then they will be able to see this module. So let's finally impersonate that user, the Scrum user, and see that user is able to impersonate or not. So I am going to add this Scrum, impersonate this Scrum user. And once I impersonate that, and if I search with the agile, I can see this module, right? Now, previously, remember, I clicked the agile board, and once you click that, you can see previously the message was showing here. If I click that backlog, you can see that these messages remain same, but you can see that once we click the sprint planning and sprint tracking, it is showing that there is no current sprint, and there is a no no backlog right now. Basically, previously there was one lock sign, but as once we added, because you can't add the user to directly to the Scrum user role, once you create a agile group and add the user to the agile group, this lock sign will be removed from the user. And although there is no current sprint, that's the reason it is coming the lock sign. But you can see the first step first is that the user has to be part of any of this agile group. Now, whatever if you are part of 2 groups, 3 groups, all this group name will be shown here in the drop down. And as you have only one groups, and this group name is showing into here. So this is how we can start our agile first steps. In our next video, we'll talk about further. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. Have a great day.